surviving but a long way from thriving. Those were the words used by Chris Waefer to describe the Russian economy. Chris joins me down the line now to discuss the matter further. Chris, preliminary data indicates that the Russian economy avoided a further reputation-damaging recession in Q2 2014, albeit only just. Now, with regards to the sanctions and obviously last week's events, will you be changing your macro outlook or maintaining these forecasts?
In terms of 2014 numbers, the sanctions don't have any direct impact. What we're seeing this year is a continuation of the slowdown in the economy that started almost in the first quarter of last year. We've seen a slowdown in consumer spending. As interest rates remain high, people are spending more of their disposable income in servicing their debt. We know that confidence started to slide in the second quarter of last year and remains low. And also companies, because of the debt issue, the difficulty in accessing credit for a lot of small and medium-sized enterprises in particular, have actually been reducing the pace of investment. So for now, we're still sticking with our expectation of 0.8% GDP growth for this year. That compares with approximately 1.1% growth we've seen for the first 6 months.
At the moment, we have the G20 summit. The UK Finance Minister has said the EU must go further in punishing Russia over Ukraine. But how far can they go?
Well, I don't really see any great appetite across the rest of Europe to kind of to agree with what the UK has been saying. I think Europe certainly looks to be very divided on this whole issue, and I suppose the division really comes down to which countries have most at stake, in other words, have most to lose. So while what I would expect is perhaps some relatively modest increase in sanctions, maybe following what the US did last week. But, you know, even here again in the US, those sanctions were designed to maximize headlines, to increase pressure. But when you analyze what the US actually did, it really doesn't have that much impact on either the companies involved. In other words, they can get that money somewhere else and it doesn't block them from accessing equity markets or trade finance.
Away from the headlines, you say that the central bank has two key challenges. Firstly, to try and bring inflation down towards 7% year on year by the year end. And secondly, to create conditions for banks to lend more and at cheaper rates than is currently the case. How achievable do you think these goals are?
I think that both of them are very difficult, and the situation as of last week has certainly not helped. The currency weakened as a knee-jerk reaction to the news of the tragedy last week. The ruble weakened from 34 against the US dollar to 35.2 within the space of a couple of days. Now that does increase inflationary pressures because it increases the cost of imported goods, consumer goods, which Russia imports a lot. In terms of lowering interest rates, well, again, I think the central bank's hands are very tied on when it comes to interest rates because they really can't afford to start cutting interest rates right now because that would be inflationary and could undermine support for the currency. And I think the government's number one priority at this point is to try and maintain currency stability.
You mentioned the strength or lack thereof of the Russian ruble. With everything we've discussed in mind, what is your outlook for the ruble in, for example, the next 6 months?
Yeah, again, we haven't changed it because, of course, the one big positive is the oil prices remaining at a level at which the budget is balanced. So the oil price provides a fairly powerful support for both for the government finances as well as for the ruble, and does compensate to some extent about the political concerns and capital flight. So we have maintained our year-end forecast of 36 ruble against the dollar, which is certainly further weakness over the next 6 months, but fairly minor weakness, and 49 against the euro. Again, you know, that would imply about 5% weakness in the ruble over the next 6 months, so sort of modest weakness. And the main reason for that, we assume, is because the central bank is still committed to moving towards a full free float of the currency in 2015.
Chris, thank you so much for your time today. Well, viewers, that's all from myself at the moment. Complementing this interview is today's Commodities Corner with Natalie MacDonald, so make sure you click back for that. Goodbye for now.